Xingyang, thank you so much for being with us here right now, this morning, this evening, for you in virtual space, to speak about your mesmerizing film, Cloud in Her Room. How are you? How's everything where you are?
Good. Hi, Sophie. Thank you for having me. And I'm right now in Hangzhou at my house, which is also one of the locations for the film. And I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, thank you for asking. How are
That's
you?
I'm good. I'm good. We're back at physically at the museum in this recording studio that's been set up for our Q&As. Again, not unlike the film, we're piecing together in a fragmentary way what a screening experience, what a festival experience is right now, and just so grateful for the filmmakers, the audiences, and also the projectionists, everybody who is going with us in creating this, actually the sensation of being together. And
Yeah.
so we first saw your film about a year ago, and it was just such a pleasure to re-encounter it and to think about it in advance of today, because the fragmentary nature of it and the questioning nature of it as relates to space feels so vibrant and so intense as relates to the past year, perhaps.
Mhm.
So maybe I just want to ask you what your experience has been with the film, being able to show it in festivals physically and then perhaps virtually. How has your relationship to the film changed in the past months, if at all?
Mhm. So we finished the film very close to our premiere at Rotterdam. And we, like many of my cast and crew, went to Rotterdam to celebrate our premiere. So it was a wonderful experience to meet everyone and the audience in Rotterdam, and saw our film at the biggest screen there.
Mm.
And then afterwards, I was in Europe because of the pandemic for 4 months before I came back to China. And gradually, many festivals are going online. And for a while, we have to make decisions of if we still participate in certain film festivals because the change of schedule or change of the format. And later on, I think now almost all the festivals are going online. And I think it's a new kind of experience for all of us,
Mm.
for us to share a film not in a theater with 5.1 and like sound
Mhm.
surrounding. But I think it's reaching some of the audience that we may not expect. So I don't know, it might be a good thing. And that's the only thing that we can do right now. So I'm like just getting used to it.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I love to try to think of what the positive or just the what the different aspect is, and think of that in actually somehow of a conceptual way. Um, but I wanted maybe to start more specifically to ask about your relationship to Hangzhou, where you are now, where the film is set, knowing that the film, as we'll talk about, melds elements of realism and of really deep and beautiful imaginary in different ways. So just maybe to ask you a bit more about your hometown, your relationship to it, in thinking that maybe it has a relation to how the film came to be.
Mhm. Um, so when I wrote the film, I was in LA doing my MFA. And so when I wrote the film was written based on real locations and many things that I have memory of Hangzhou. But inside the story, I think it also created a layer of the space that only belongs to the story.
Mm.
And when we come back to do the production, I think the chemistry that brought by the cast
Mm.
also made me see this place slightly differently because the main cast, Jin Jing,
Mm.
who played the protagonist Muzi, she's also from Hangzhou.
Mm.
And
Mm.
by knowing her and knowing her story with the city also inspired me to change some of the script. And I
Mm.
really tried to um, keep the film alive by not only making the film based on my design or my memory or my writing. So I think through the film, we really developed a new relationship only between the film and the city. And
Mhm.
then later on, we did a private screening with the cast and crew and the friends who helped on the film in Hangzhou. And by watching the film on location, it also triggered something differently. But each time, I think it made me rethink about my own relationship with the city, because when I was in the US, there is this gap of time and distance.
Mm, 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 mm.
So I think many things are romanticized. But when I come back, because we will have the Asian Olympics in 2022 in Hangzhou, so there are many constructions are going on in order to have the city getting ready for this like international event. And these kind of constructions are politically driven.
Mm.
So it's a city that I have very deep like personal connection with, but now it is um, becoming a city that is more open to a bigger crowd of public.
Mm.
So it's like a constant viewing the outside and then looking back inside and kind of feeling the distance. And yeah.
Yeah, that's such a kind of poignant diasporic notion of going back home somewhere that, or going back somewhere, returning to the scene of memory or of a life event that's changed so much. And that's really palpable in the film. The idea of limbo is so palpable for me, this kind of in-betweenness, but it seems to happen in such a layered way, meaning you have the kind of interiority of this kind of really superb and emotive and evocative protagonist, but her interiority, her limbo, is embedded in the limbo of everybody, of the constellation around her, and that limbo is embedded in the city. You know, this kind of like
Mhm.
stacking effect. And I'm wondering if you could speak more about the casting and the actors and perhaps non-actors that you worked with in developing or perhaps just capturing those personal relations, because that really I think is so astounding. You're showing us not only the interiority of this protagonist, but giving us a slice of life, a slice of either being stuck or looking for something new or just thinking and feeling in different ways from virtually everybody we encounter, even if it's just for a few moments.
Mhm. I'll start with the casting
Mhm.
process. So I saw the lead actress Jin Jing on Instagram actually,
Mhm.
because she went to she quit her school when she was 16, and then she went to Beijing when she was 19, and she was surrounded by a group of artists, photographers.
Mhm.
So on her Instagram, she had some photos shot by her friends. And in those photos, I saw something really fragile in her eyes. And I found that interesting. And I asked if she wanted to meet up. So after I met with her, we did a short film together called a White Butterfly on a Bus.
Mhm.
That it was in a training camp um, mentored by Tsai Ming-liang.
Mhm.
And that's the first time that I worked with her, and also the first time I worked with the cinematographer.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, and then in the original script, actually the boyfriend character is not so dominant like we see now in the film. But during one screening that my previous short film was screening with this artist called Chen Zhou, who
Mhm.
later played the boyfriend.
Mhm.
So he's also a director, artist, and I met him at the screening. We are showing our films together because we have this similar subject of doing the hybrid doc fiction work. And I found him very interesting, and I want him to be part of this film. And I asked him if he's interested in acting. So it is by like knowing these interesting people, and I also start to rethink about the characters that I had in my script, and I really try to work the characters around these people that I find as well. And then when we go into the production, I recorded some of the rehearsals, and some of the like the DV portions that we see in the film were original in the script,
Mm.
but I also tried to make it as a way to approach these characters when my cast um, are still in their process of growing to these people in the story. Yeah, so yeah, that's how yeah, kind of I worked with the cast.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's wonderful to hear that. And what about the family? Like the family relations, I think are so interesting in a way that there's almost a peer relation, a bit more of a peer relation or unfixed relation between this young woman and her parents and the parents' new partners and the stepsister.
Mhm.
How did how did you kind of conceptualize or stage that? I mean, how did that come about?
Mhm. Um, I try to tell a contemporary city story,
Mhm.
and I think I try to see these parents as men and women,
Mhm.
because I think for many children, they, or say we, as we were born, we see our parents as our fathers and mothers, and I think it really takes time for us to realize they're also men and women. And one day, if they break up, they can have their new life, and they won't have to play this role that given by certain social circumstances.
Mhm.
So I think I try to view them as individuals, and I think I give that perspective to the protagonist.
Mhm.
And I think it's something really real and contemporary right now. Um, yeah, it's not only purely by my imagination, I think.
Yeah, it was really striking, and also in thinking of how your practice and the film deals with genre or different types of film. So I definitely want to add, I mean, you already alluded to it, but to speak more specifically about this kind of hybrid of documentary moments or realism and this dramatic arc. But even within the dramatic arc, for me, you're playing with so many different kinds and types of film. Uh, whether it be this kind of art house family drama, psychodrama, which is so present in kind of, 60s, 70s and more, European film, or even the notion of a coming of age picture. Like, how,
Mhm.
it is a coming of age picture, but actually, in some ways, but as you've alluded to, every character is in progress and you intentionally capture them that way. Not to mention these kind of avant-garde visual interventions that are really, really striking. So the film comes across as this really striking collage in some ways, more of just like for me, more than just like a doc fiction
Mhm.
hybrid. Wondering
Mhm.
if you could speak about some of those layers, the different kinds of things that went into the form.
Mhm. So I try not to put like different parts of this film's material into categories of saying this is a doc approach, or say this part is purely fictional,
Mhm.
because I think this film is not made um, like some of more traditional approaches, saying like I have a goal, and the whole team work together to get there.
Mhm.
I think what I'm trying is to, through this film, I firstly get to know some of the people that I may otherwise won't know in my life.
Mhm.
These kind of interesting people, I gather them together. And then I went back to some of the locations that I'm already familiar with these new encounters in my life. And all together, I hope this film can get to somewhere that I've never been before.
Mhm.
So I think some of the techniques that we use in this film, this film is not new. many things that we have already seen before. So I think many things that I put there are really for the effects that it is like some of the effects that are created in the combinations of what's coming before and what's coming after. And I try to create a space for people to walk in, and what kind of feelings that people will get afterwards. It's really, I think, a gift for them, and they can open up in a dark room in cinema, and now like maybe at their home after watch our film online. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that in terms of this assembly of certainly kind of existing techniques, but what ends up being really striking to me is the atmosphere and the mood and the look. Actually, we haven't even asked you, maybe you want to talk about the choice to shoot in black and white. Um, but the the idea that there's a citational aspect, I wonder what you think of that. I mean, the one observation somebody can make about the film is that it looks like it's made by somebody who actually loves cinema, right? I mean, there's maybe kind of elements or tropes or that you're playing with. I think there was a number of texts or reviews that would fixate on how much kind of the cigarette smoking, that kind of atmospheric, moody, gestures there. I think we should also say that one of your short films is called, what is it called? Smokers
Smokers die
Die Slowly
slowly
Together.
together.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of mood and cinematic mood, is there anything that you want to talk about more specifically about either whether it's black and white, or it's whether it's like kind of this feminist sexual awakening, or kind of
Mhm.
limbo of these angsty characters? Anything else you kind of wanted just to walk us through?
So for the black and white, I think after I finished writing the script, these kind of black and white image came into my mind. I try not to overly analyze it to give a very specific reason for why it's in black and white, but I think many of the moments in this film also comes from certain experience from my past. It's not autobiographical, but I think there are people that I met that look may shine certain light in my memory that created certain feeling that I want to capture in the film. But for me, what's really important is what we have on set and what I really see. So I think those kind of feeling that comes back from my memory guide me into the film, like guide me into the production. But I really try to capture what's happening there. And for the smoking, there were not that many smoking scenes in the script, but just many of my cast are smokers. And even when we were talking in between takes, they will start to smoke. And somehow it just like, the smoking scenes are becoming more than we originally designed. And I didn't think it hurts, so I left them there. And don't I don't think that I try to create certain mood or style in the film, but I do feel like when we make a film, when I was on set, you feel there is certain breath of the film at a certain moment, like when you maybe 1/3 into the production, you feel that. And I kind of have to follow it and reshape it in the editing as well. And I think that's the thing really leads the audience to get into the zone of this film. And as we say, that it had certain mood or atmosphere. But I think in a way it's spiritually maybe all the cast and crew, when we were concentrate enough to one point. And I think filmmaking really created another layer of reality for people to live in. And even when I look back, it feels like a bubble and it's hard to re-enter again. And I remember after the production, it took 35 days. So it was not a long production. And when I went back home and see people in the street, maybe for 35 days, people are just going to work every day, live their life same as 35 days before. But for us, we really went on an adventure, and that's something. The film is something that comes from that moment, and yeah.
Yeah, it really comes across that it was not only so collective, but in some ways a sum greater than its parts. Like you can't really define, as you've suggested, you know, what one particular sensation that we might get comes from. But one thing that does come across so strongly, I wonder if you could elaborate on, is just the intimacy that you have, or the whole crew had with each other, and the kind of trust that it must have taken, or intimacy must have taken, to capture some um, really kind of vulnerable or intimate moments as relates to the body, human bodies, again, kind of sexuality, or just actually being, right? How close up you get uh, to the faces, to the images, how the body is contorted. Is that something you want to talk about a bit more? Kind of maybe just filming the body and how you think about that.
I think first of all, because my lead actress, she's really comfortable with her body and expressed through her like physically. So that's the first point. And the second thing is, I think when we choose how to film these intimate scenes, my cinematographer is pretty conscious about himself being a male. And when we choose an angle or how we film it, if what he is showing me that I feel like not comfortable, I will show him what I see, and he will make it work with what I'm showing him. And there are also scenes that I shot by myself in this film. So it's, yeah, so it's, and I think we did very thorough communication. So there's no surprises during the filming. And it's the first time for the lead actress to perform in a film. So I think she really gave me a lot of trust. And I remember before we finished the film, one day she was telling me that she feel acting is really something interesting and also a little bit dangerous. I think she's really getting into her process of who she is and who she can be, and who's the character and who the character can be. So it's a wonderful experience to really develop something based on maybe each of us don't have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so special. I mean, we're all becoming, right? As people, we're all still becoming something else. So we're seeing in some way your actor and the character in different phases of becoming. I mean, it's really very, very special. And just to reflect on, and maybe we can segue a bit more to cinematography. I really want to talk more about that, about some of the spaces that you film in, whether it's a swimming pool or the bathtub, um, or the karaoke bar, like just these kind of sites that are primed for vulnerability or for abandon. But those are also part of a larger cityscape, and that even has, but also has nature that's kind of present, whether it's these caves or the wedding on the mountaintop. I mean, one of the words that kept coming back to me was the idea of like the far reaches of something, because that is both geographical or topological, but also psychological. And there's no site that does that more to us than the apartment, right? Then we always kind of come back to the apartment. So yeah, maybe if you could speak more about, I mean, place is everything in the film in some ways, and everything in a wider sense, you know, where you are, how you move through space.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you already spoke a bit about assembling these places, some that have a meaning to you, some that have meaning to somewhere else, to other folks. But how did you start to think about how you would film these different places?
Mhm. So first of all, like Hangzhou is a city really famous for its scenery,
Mhm.
actually. But I try to not romanticize the city because it's my hometown or because it's in a film.
Mhm.
Many of the locations are um, were written originally based on what I can find and what I feel that is suitable for what will be happening inside. And I think many spaces are containers of certain conditions of being. And I think something interesting to play with is what the space is providing with what are we trying to put into the container. Like, for example, the wedding shoot scene. It's in a way cinematic, like the beautiful mountaintop, and but it's supposed to be a wedding shoot that is pretty like celebrating the marriage of two young people, but it's in cold winter and it's also raining. It feels really cold. And when we do the sound design, actually, my sound designer Li Danfeng, we also had a great collaboration together, and he had an idea of um, not really using the sound that we may normally hear on a mountaintop, that you hear like in the far distance there is traffic, but in this scene we try to make it almost in a space that we don't know where.
Mm.
uh, I think that kind of like, because sound many times people experience it subconsciously, um, and that kind of design creates a certain distance for the audience to experience with what you see on the screen.
Mm.
But you don't really know why usually, like for the audience to watch it for the first time. So we put a little bit ideas here and there to make it a little bit off somewhere. Like when you watch the film, the feeling, you feel the scene. Yeah, it just, yeah. Um, yeah, in a way, like I think each place cannot fully satisfy um, your expectations for it usually. Like a home but not yet, or really a home. um, yeah, an old house that may disappear somehow, and a mountaintop that you don't hear the surrounding city sound. I think that created a certain feeling of isolation and where you really are, even when you feel that you're immersed in life.
Yeah, the wedding shoot was really striking to me in both the manipulation of sound and hearing you talk about it. It's actually like you so it sounds like you took what we might call field recordings somehow, right? It kind of ambient recordings, but they're no more or less true than any kind of score or musical track that's supposed to prompt an emotional reaction. I mean, those are all kind of dislocated. And the other thing that's so striking in that moment is some for me, I don't know, that is the notion of taking a picture, the idea of creating a memory. Like you're showing us this kind of what's perhaps a major certainly a major life event, um, and an emotional significant moment, but it's somehow reduced already to its own memory. I mean, that's kind of how I read it, uh, in these kind of collapsing of temporalities. What's the time that you're living something, and then what's the time that you're looking back on it? That really was just so striking. Um,
Yeah, thank you for sharing
yeah.
your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. No, these are end up being so much more conversational. It's just such a yeah, just delightful to be able to talk to you about the work. which again is just so memorable and so mesmerizing. Would you want to talk more about again the kind of the apartment, the kind of the central site we haven't spoken too much about how you collaborated in cinematography and how to capture it, or anything else you wanted to talk about in dealing with the different places that you shot?
Mm-hmm. I think in order to create these different locations, mainly, so first there's the old apartment, there's the father's apartment, and there's the mother's apartment. We try to differentiate them not only, I think, through cinematography, but also by doing the production design and kind of reflecting on the status of the people who are living in it. So for the mother's character, she lives on the first floor, and it's a place that you can see the outside. And it's very close to the society, basically the outside, the people walking by. And it's very easy to intrude, like being disturbed. And I think she has certain tendency of involving herself to throw herself into life, to find someone new to love, to cherish her, to be alive, like basically. And there are scenes that we shot that were not in the film, like she was also dancing with other mid-aged women in a square and all that. And for the father's apartment, it's more like a mid-aged apartment, and it's a family with a younger child. So there are different elements that we put in the space in order to indicate the status being of these main characters. And the father's space is more spacious, and in a way that you feel like this man, being a jazz percussionist player, and he has two daughters. He's supposed to have, like, in many people's eyes, he's having a great life. He has a wife of like two daughters, but there is certain emptiness also in that apartment. And eventually, the old apartment, there's supposed to be like no one in the apartment, but it has all those things that were still there, represents the past. And Muzi is trying to find an old painting, and in a way that the old apartment, most distanced place with the most distant memory, but Muzi is the closest to the place, because that's the place that she can really own and belong. Like she can stay freely there, and she can observe the neighbors if she wants to. So I think these kind of contrast is also very important. The old apartment that is no longer may no longer exist, it like holds the most intimacy, and the apartments that belongs to the parents that's supposed to be home doesn't really have a place for her in a way.
Or
Yeah,
different kinds of agency, right? The different things she's allowed or maybe able to do. You just mentioned some of the scenes that didn't make it into the kind of the final film, so made me want to ask you more about the editing and kind of the shape of the film and the rhythm, which is so atmosphere. I mean, I keep saying atmospheric. I think that's one of my big words for the film, but drives different kinds of familiarity or alienation, kind of in different ebbs and flows. Did you have a sense of the shape of the film and the edit of it, the rhythm of it at the onset, or did that come a bit later?
So when we were in the production, I think when we get to the 2/3 of the film, many scenes are different from the writing already. and I start to imagine how they might work for the film, but I try not to set it down too solid, and I try to leave some space that we can play with in the editing. But the editing process was pretty long and hard. I edited by myself for like half a year.
Wow.
And then later we have an editor joined me in, and we finished the film within another 3.5 months.
Mm.
So there were a lot of things to play with. And the hard thing for the editing is there is this fluidity in this film. And many times you start with the beginning and you find if there's something not working, like by the second half, you fix the second half, and the next morning you wake up and you watch the whole film, you feel the front part is not working anymore. So
Mm.
it's there is a flow in this film, and we really trying to make the film that can really hold the flow of this emotion and all these fluidity of human relationships. Yeah. Yeah, so that took a while. And I also tried to keep the film alive by keep rewriting the film.
Mm.
um, yeah, so it was hard work for editing.
Yeah, yeah. The the intentionality of the shape really comes across. Uh, so yeah, I mean, you can tell that that was again such a personal and iterative process. In speaking of the rhythm of the film, could you say two words about the ending? Kind of just like I mean, what felt like some kind of dual culmination or open-endedness. Um, yeah, I'd be curious to hear you speak a bit about it.
Mhm. um, the end of the film actually was shot pretty late, like after we finished the whole production, like the principal shoot. And I've already went into the editing, but it was soon after the production that my assistant editor told me that there is this construction going on around my area, and I went there to see what's going on and shot the end of the movie. And a friend of mine watched the film in Hong Kong, and she told me she felt that like the city is in a way, in a form that is representing Muzi, the protagonist, emotion and her physicalities. And I think in a way you can interpret it that way, but I also try not to give a very specific answer about like, oh, what it really means, because to me, to put her very intimate voice underneath something so public and something being destroyed, but so normal right now, like it happens daily here, like in Hangzhou. I think the combination created something for me personally. And I think for the audience, I think it's really open for their own interpretation. And when they get to this point of the film, um, what they get is, I think, belongs to them. Is I don't really have a goal, like to say like what I want them to feel. I think that's not important.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. That at the end, the connections or the sensations are the viewers, and the kind of push and pull between personal subject material and a kind of anti-romanticism, I think is really interesting. Even thinking about actually the first lines of the film, knowing that Muzi's return is because of the New Year celebration. You know, what constitutes the new? What constitutes a ritual of renewal? As if, as you say, there's the built environment is evolving at a pace that is so much more of a breakneck speed. Like it's a new city every day, but it's a new year, a new person. How often? You know, just kind of those questions are. I don't know. I find those questions interesting
Mhm.
because there's a way in which the new year is a symbolic device that you've given us, but it seems that you give it to us and take it away at the same time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
I did take it away, but I think like many things worked around in circles that you feel like you're getting into a new year. She's meeting new people, and she's coming back to her city and seeing the changes of her surroundings, no matter for it is for the relationships or
Yeah.
for the city. But eventually, she's still alone. Like
Mm.
I think many times in life that you experience so much, and one day you sit alone in your living room and you just wonder like what happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Are there any other memorable moments from the production or shoot that you wanted to share? It really seems like it was such a special group. Anything kind of as we get closer to the end that we haven't talked about, you want to share?
Mm, I think most of what I'm trying to say are already in the film.
Mm.
And I try not to like add on too much about um, like personal perspective on it, because I really want to leave the film for the film itself to walk into the world and really meet its own audience. But I do wish that because some of like many of my cast are first time acting in film, and I wish them like good luck in the future, and I wish that like the people who see the film can appreciate um, like what are we hiding in the film or putting there in the film or leaving in the film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've really given us a gift actually, which is, if I may say, which is a debut feature, which is as much a constellation of voices than your own voice, and that kind of that comment thing brings that to life. So I won't ask you about this film. I'll ask you now what you're working on next, or what's on your mind for our, kind of uncertain but still coming future.
Mm-hmm. So I'm writing. I'm also doing still photography, and I'm working on a family documentary and also another like a medium length. I think a short work, but I don't know like which one may come into shape first. So we kind of have to wait and see.
Well, I'll be very, very excited to follow, and hopefully the next time we have conversation, it will be perhaps across a dinner table or in the same theater or something,
Yes,
something like that.
please.
I really thank you for your time,
Yeah.
especially at this kind of late hour for you, but it really was a pleasure. And again, congratulations. And it's a film that, I mean, I want to watch over and over again. So I can't wait to see it again now, having had this lovely exchange with you.
Thank you, Sophie. And yeah, thank you for liking our film. And I will keep on working on other works and
Very
hope
good.
that in the future that we can meet in person.
Super. That sounds like a plan. Take care. Bye
Take
bye.
care. Thank you. Bye.